I'm Johanna Hedva. I am in Berlin, so I'm pre-recording this because of the time difference, and that means that right now the event is in my future, but when you see this, it will be in my past. So I'm glad that we could converge in whatever strange overlap of time. I was really looking forward to being there in person this year. I have a history with UCSB. I went to Santa Barbara City College for a couple of years, and I also worked at UCSB for a couple of years. And Chaucer's bookstore is one of my favorite places in the world. So I was hoping to get to reunite with some of my favorite places. So instead, maybe you can take my spirit with you to Chaucer's or to the beach or around Santa Barbara. Is the Frog Shrine still there on the Riviera? That was also one of my favorite things. So anyway, for my artist talk, I am going to read an essay that was already circulated, hopefully, but is not yet published. It's called A Decade of Sleeping, and it is appearing in my new book, Minerva, The Miscarriage of the Brain, which is published in September by two small presses in California, Sming Books and Wolfman Books. I wrote this essay in March and April of this year, so it's quite fresh, which is why I wanted to use it for this event. And then the other thing that I won't read, but which I think was circulated, was the piece that I wrote for Get Well Soon, which is this artist project that Sam Levine and Tika Brain made for the COVID-19 crisis situation, world now, everlasting present. So because I think it's not so interesting for me to read this and you to watch my face reading it, I'm going to share my screen with you right now with the live jellyfish cam at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. My grandmother lives about 20 minutes away from the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and every year as a kid I would go up there, and it's one of my, it's a thing that I use to feel close to home in California, is I put the live jellyfish cam on my computer and just let it run all day. So I'm going to do that, read the piece, and then I'll do question and answer with these very articulate and interesting questions that you all submitted. I hope I'll be able to do some of them justice. So with that, thank you to Jessie for having me, and to all of the other panelists and participants. I'm glad that we could converge somehow, even if it's not in corporal space. Okay. A Decade of Sleeping. There's an epigraph by Clarice Lispector. Do not mourn the dead. They know what they are doing. Number 1. I sleep 10, 11 hours each night, and I sleep not like the dead, but as if I'm dying, as if I'm really living. When I fall asleep every time, since the first time I can remember falling asleep as a child, that claustral blackness crushing in, that blackness like a house, a heaven, a pit. I think I won't ever wake up again. This is it, and will soon be was. I am gripped by a shock of death fear. Sometimes I bolt upright. For many years I'd cry out, but I don't want to die. And then I lie back down and sleep thickly, my sleep writhing with its own queer intelligence. I, suffocated by my dreams, face their coup, until noon the next day, when waking finds me, like a slippery hand searching through black water. It pulls me up, light seeps in, and then a slow, cautious inhale, the day with a me in it, is born. I sleep until noon and I cannot be roused. I tell people I work in the mornings, so must not be bothered. I sleep in the mornings, I work in the mornings. I am sleeping, I am working. In my dreams, I work and work and work, the hard, pure work that must be done in that land. I have only nightmares. Like I said, I work hard. I murder people with my bare hands because they threaten me or those I'm supposed to protect. Sometimes I know the people in my dreams, the threats and my charges and myself, and sometimes they are all of them strangers, and in this way, equal parts anagogic and pathetic, I know them too. Sometimes there is no threat in people, but in the air. The sky is a breathing green. Every building hides a labyrinth. All the beds are not my size. Tunnels, bathtubs, they are not mine. I murder in slow, brutal ways. I tug fistfuls of hair until it leaves the dirt of its scalp, like weeds pulled out by the roots. I feel the cords of muscles underneath my fingernails as I scratch through skin slowly, working to get down to the quick of bones. I watch versions of myself drown while housed in the bodies of children, their flesh shredded by the waves, their little necks broken. I stand over their crushed bodies and I leave them to drown because it's only by breaking away that I can breathe. I boil my mother's bones in my dreams because she tells me to. She tells me, a black hole behind my shoulders whispering into my ears, that I must clean up our family's mess, make sure to wipe away the little bits of her grease that got stuck on the walls and the ceiling and the floor. In my dreams, I am blessed with 3 cocks, and I use all of them with savagery and precision and wild, eager strokes. I tear people with them. I let myself be torn. I am relentlessly on my hands and knees in my dreams. I am always falling from a great height. I love my dreams for being so simple and clear, for their mercy. My sleep is good to me. I am good to my sleep. I treat it like royalty. I clear my schedule for its arrival. I insist on my sleep because someone's got to. Professionally, socially, this is hard. Are you available to meet earlier? The only free appointments are in the morning. We close at noon. The cheapest flights leave early. I'm sorry, I say I can't. I am not available. I am not available to do anything before noon because I'm sleeping, because I'm working, because I am then who I most am ever, and I will not give that up for anything, let alone for something as imaginary as money or time. I wrote most of this book, maybe all of it, maybe all of my books, in my sleep. Who's to say I am awake now? Are you? I write as soon as I wake, but it is through writing that I fully awaken. I open my eyes and don't speak, and the dreams of that sleep resist being usurped with all they have. They don't go quietly. I go to my desk. I don't speak so that they might continue to, and if I do anything other than go to my desk, my writing, the dreams are swiftly dethroned with a violent cut that is final, at least until the next night. You must understand it's not my sleep. It's that I belong to it. A poet asked me where I go during hypnagogic states, who I become. But that assumes I exist somewhere different as someone else at all. He asked me who I meet, what beings visit me, and the answer is everyone I've ever met, this life and others, and they never tell me their names. Names have no currency in dreams. They are revealed to be the false things they are. Names, words, money, time, the moon, magic, my mother. The weight of truth is given to some of these and not the other. Depends on the place, of course. In some places, the moon, magic, and my mother are sovereign. They are miracles, and they are also food, regular, ordinary, nightly food. When Anne Carson began her poem, An Ode to Sleep, with the line, "Think of yourself without it," she must have been laughing to herself, a little smirk on her lips. She seems to me the kind of person who laughs to herself often. She's a writer of voids. Can't you see her, reader? Anne Carson squatting on my shoulder as I write this. Think of yourself without it. The trick of this sentence is to swap it and yourself. Think of it without yourself. And now we get close to the facility of this place, how ambidextrous it is, how shifting of its shape. There are selves, many of them, that I meet in my dreams as in life. They wander through the frame, appearing briefly, or they sit still at the edge, forms blurred in the background. I like the notion that everyone and everything in dreams is a representation of the dreamer. Not only am I the enormous black whale beneath the surface of the menacing black water, but I am also the water. I am the small, me-sized boat that is tossed in the waves, and I am the waves. What comforts me about this is not that it proposes a world composed of myself, to say that I abound and I am many, but rather that most of myself is alien to me, teeming and uncountable, that myself exists in the bodies of measureless strangers and as non-human beings, oceans, objects, animals, the weather. It makes myself feel very, very far away, permanently out of reach, further than light can travel. By the time the light of myself reaches these outer satellites of myself, the origin point will have died. There's only the trajectory toward, the trajectory away, and since the night sky is a land of the ghosts of stars, whatever there is that I am is but charnel dust, planetary tombs, and in this distance it's absolute and mundane, the fact of it heavy and belasting. In this I am anchored. It is no big thing. It's only many. Number 2. Minerva the Miscarriage of the Brain was not born as a book. She was not conceived at all. She sprang from my head motherless. She was crawling with ghosts. She was a school of them. In 2015, I noticed that some pieces from 5 years of work that I had been making shared DNA. In 2016, I started to collect these pieces into a lawless document that felt rowdy and foolish, like a person who says a word over and over and over until she is screaming it, and the meaning leaves both the word and the choice to scream it, and the air lives with sound, delirious not because of its fact of existence, but of the anarchic writ that existence is a mess. Both the document and the act of constructing the document felt like this. It made me feel young. A feat. This book is about how I am old. The book you hold in your hands bears little resemblance to that first manuscript, beyond the first and last pieces still placed first and last, anchors. All the guts in the middle have been seized and fondled and repossessed. I don't think it's my responsibility to know what it's become, what it is, only that it is, that it has been. There is sleep, there is madness and mysticism, the horror of living that is transcendent and banal, always both ineffably together, and waking up to this each day summons its own music. There is always the body, but the task is how to eclipse it, how to nebulize it, and how to cope when this inevitably fails. I thought she'd be my first book, something to be embarrassed by. I'd forgive myself for it. I'd leave it in the past. I screamed in rooms. I dragged my hand through water. I slept and slept and slept and sleep. I write. For the 4 years I spent trying to get her published, Minerva shapeshifted and was unmanageable, and I don't know if I was Odysseus and she Penelope, or vice versa. Like Odysseus, she ventured out into the world, maybe to fight a war, maybe seeking fame, maybe she just got lost. She odysseyed through 2 publishing adventures that went bust, and I waited and yearned for her to find a home. I spent that time weaving burial shrouds, other books, other words, and I felt bereft, and then suspicious when Minerva returned. I didn't trust it was she. Her face was different. She'd been gone so long. Or was it me who'd left home, laboring across the wine-dark sea, hooked by sirens, kidnapped by a sorceress, shipwrecked, until I finally found my way to a bed that didn't move? Books are little coffins. A professor of mine once told me that, and it is true. Of course, I was also Homer. Minerva taunted me. I asked friends for advice. Is this even anything? It wasn't just that she kept getting rejected and orphaned, but it was watching someone take herself apart, paint on a new face, and slither into skins that squirmed with many names, none of which were right. Should I feel awed at this capacity, or could I not trust her? Perhaps these are the same. The main reason I wanted Minerva to be published, why I kept sending her out each time it felt like dropping a child down a well that grew deep and long, was that I wanted to kill the time in my life that she documents. My decade began with a divorce from an abusive husband and a miscarriage caused by an inherited disease. It sailed on to an involuntary hospitalization and ended with the death of my mother. I never wanted to see Minerva again because of what I saw when I looked. I get it, my first publisher said to me. You abandon your work into the world. Number 3, Bataille said, I hold the apprehension of God to be an obstacle in the movement which carries us to the more obscure apprehension of unknowing, of a presence which is no longer in any way distinct from an absence. I prefer words that mean more than one thing. Apprehension, an anxiety or fear that something bad will happen. Apprehension, understanding, grasp. These are the same. Number 4. For many years I kept a section on my CV called Appearances. It listed talks and lectures I'd given, and instances when I'd appeared in other people's dreams. The dreams came from friends, texts, and emails, their own words, each from a different person. I had a dream last night that I was saying how much I dislike Batman, and you touched my arm and said, but he is sick. And then the rest of the dream was thinking about Batman and mental illness. This is one of my favorites, by the way. I had a dream about you, and there was a thin red seam running vertically through the middle of it like it was going to split. Are you okay? That is second dream of you with a splitting seam. First seam was in a whale belly. You were choreographing a dance piece with about 4 to 5 people in it. I was one of the dancers, doing contemporary dance moves on the floor, as I so often like doing, and would occasionally shapeshift into a snake. Not really a thin, slivery snake, but more like this. I had a dream last night that I had you in my arms, but you were not conscious. I guess it was normal to have mannequins of people you knew. And I danced you around and then pulled you close to my face and said, "Are you here?" And you said no. But you did this before in Amsterdam. And I said, "Are you okay?" And you said yes. I had a dream about you last night that was just a headline that said, "Naked performance artist steals university chancellor's pen, makes getaway on roof." I just dreamt that you shaved your head and transplanted some of the hair into a mustache. You had a tan suit on and were maintaining a personal space bubble of about 10 feet. We were at a joint funeral estate sale. If you'd have smiled, the mustache would have been compromised, so you didn't. You were in my dream last night. I don't remember much except it was about going back and forth in hallways, wanting to try on coats that were needed because it was cold, but there was a ride to an opera not to miss, so the hallways seemed too long. And somehow also being a security guard for cars. You were wearing red and holding this super long metal pole that went up out of my field of vision. I couldn't see what was on the other end of the pole, but it seemed to me that it was supporting some kind of structure, a structure that we were both inside of, but that was also invisible to us, either actually invisible or just itself very large. Anyway, you were just standing there holding this pole, and then I woke up. Number 5. How comforting that sleep is fugitive. How I've trespassed into the sleep of others, as my own has been infested. All these lives lived reciprocally, bound to each other, sweet. In those 10 years, how many of me were there? There were how many? I don't think the doom-hope axis is the only axis, because I don't believe in axes at all, and I don't believe in hope. There is no divine purpose other than the telos of nothingness and the war zone of sociality, but both make beautiful garbage, a choratic plenum. There's a tiny pocket in the universe's coat, and me and my language, like a miracle, live there. We sleep there. We make a small lump. Sometimes the universe slips us a few crumbs. Despite how cold it is, it can also be warm. Number 6. Minerva, I hope to never know you again. I will now watch you fade to black. I pray this black is one who sleeps in a bed that's not my own. See you soon.